time to get geeked up.
Kind of like we were saying before, though, too, just like with this whole movie, kind of sketchiness of like the online creepiness of it. But even we didn't really talk about too much before the movie started. But the movie really mirrors real life in the aspect that
we were waiting for our big reveal at the end of the movie, a very Hollywood play for me and Barnes to save the. Yeah, exactly. Our big explosive Tarantino. I was going to say our big M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end is. But in all seriousness, and as well, I guess I had mentioned that this movie is kind of more relevant than good, but there was a huge story around this movie that put it kind of in the headlines that
Absolutely.
I believe Devin is about to...
For sure. And I guess what Liam's referring to is then back in January of 2019, the actual mayor of Poland, Paweł Adamowicz, was actually stabbed to death at a charity event in Warsaw. And much like the main politician in this movie, he was a huge supporter of gay rights and kind of pro-immigration, which is a big thing that I didn't know about that until really doing research in this in Poland right now about kind of like what you saw with those far-right protesters is really something that's going on in Poland,
for
right?
sure.
Not like a years and years or like a Black Mirror kind of take on it. It really is that like
there is. And I guess that is an interesting thing, just in aside from the whole mayor assassination, as we'll get into or whatnot. But that is kind of, and I think we were talking about it on one of the most recent episode or whatever. But America does kind of lose sight on the fact we're so wrapped up in how much of an asshole Trump is. But this whole nationalist movement is like a huge thing going around in every country around the world, and especially as immigration from African nations and Muslim nations has started more in Europe. There's been more, racism and anti-immigration in all these European countries just because there's a lot more immigrants in these countries than there had been 20, 30 years ago, let's say. And just in general, this is like a movement that's going on in lots of different countries that in America we kind of are wrapped up in our own. And I've talked about the American arrogance where we think we're the only assholes and, we have to be the biggest scum, we have to be the biggest jerks in the world. But there's these nutty shit going on in all countries throughout the world, and I guess a huge example in Poland with what Devin's talking about.
No, for sure, man. And much like you were saying, too, like it really is. Not only does the movie itself really, because kind of like in the real life, the obvious real life thing of just like, straight up the mayor getting stabbed to death at an event, much like this movie. But it really does just kind of mirror like what's going on here in the States too, like you were saying, of just like, I think Trump's whole big thing was immigration and building a giant fucking wall to keep out Mexicans and the fucking
for sure.
I mean, his whole platform too was like no one that's Muslim can come here. So
that was one of his big platforms, of course. But, in
like
Poland, though, you're right, this was very much of like a,
you could have told me this was the fucking United States besides the language. I've been like, oh, no doubt.
No, for sure.
But easily, I guess, like much like we were talking about, like The Office and other British shows, you could easily, it wouldn't take but fucking a couple of script changes, make an American version.
No, for sure. No, just in general, its social relevancy is bang on. But really more than that, though, I guess, we've kind of strayed away from that. I kind of detoured a little bit. But this is really just like a movie almost about the assassination of this guy. However, the movie had been, like, written and, they had already started work on the movie before the assassination took place in January of 2019, and like it was, I guess the guy had previous to the assassination had been online bullied and all this stuff for a long time, and there's been like all of this trolling and hate going against him, which was all in the movie and just straight out of the headlines in Poland. But assumingly the assassination was part of the script as well, but this is really like, almost a biopic on they even have the same name, as it's even Paweł Rudnicki in the movie and Paweł Adamowicz. But so the movie was controversial from that standpoint, where it was just like almost too much mirroring the headlines.
Like Liam and I were debating before this too. Did they start this movie like after that happened or before? But I think what you were saying,
I think they might have had to alter the ending. They might claim that they didn't, but there's no. I mean, it would be too crazy.
Also the guy guy has the same goddamn first name. Like, it seems very like.
Well, I think it was started to be based on the real life situation. Who knows if they wrote that he was assassinated, and then they say that they wrote that he was assassinated pre-assassination. You know what I mean? Maybe the movie was
other way. This movie was leading up to, obviously, that. I don't.
Maybe him getting caught beforehand or something. You know what I mean? But so very much, like a startlingly out of the headlines, especially in Poland. You know what I mean? Like if you're one of our Polish geeks out there, this movie has to be a real mindfuck. It's like the Boston bombing movie, but not really the same guys. And like 2 months after it happened, you know what I mean? So
no doubt. But I guess the kitschy question then, because the other thing too, with like I guess the mirroring of it though, is like Liam was saying, the mayor in real life, Paweł Adamowicz, was
Adamowicz
was a victim of like the online like bullying and kind of like the mayhem that you saw in this movie. So I guess the kitschy question that we're kind of asking each other, because it brings up a good point, is does there need to kind of be some kind of like online regulations, kind of like what China does with like not allowing social media, or maybe even a kind of just because the obviousness in this movie is that he's playing both sides and he's like literally working at the meme building factory, does there kind of need to be more of a look-in kind of like, I would say, like if you're getting a background check if you're buying a gun, you need a background check before you're able to like post these crazy fucking ideas online?
Yeah. Or and we've already kind of dealt with it just, in the American headlines, but even this last couple of months where Facebook or Twitter have taken down Trump's posts based on their factuality, and then Trump has, threatened to boycott like the social media things for blocking his posts based on how factual they would be. Like, should there be some, regulation of truth in your posts? Like, should there be regulation on how many accounts you should be having or whatnot? Should there be regulation at all, I guess, is the ultimate kitschy question, but really relevant not only in Poland, but just in the States as well, like I'm saying with...
Absolutely.
all the bots and right-wing conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It's like,
man. I mean, I've always had this idea, and I guess at the heart of the question, I would say no, there shouldn't be regulations. But I've always had this kind of idea for, like, especially if you're gonna like repost like articles you've read. There should be this thing that if you're going to share something and comment on it, you should have to answer like 3 questions about the article that you just read and that you're going to repost to make sure that you actually fucking understand what you read before you go share it somewhere else and put your own fucking...
You can't just read the headline and then, that's a cool headline. I'll post this article.
Like, no, you fucking bozo. If you're going to post this, answer these 3 questions about what you just read. Obviously, it would never be allowed because...
For sure. And I mean, it does just bring up an interesting question, like we said, like, should there be a government regulation kind of thing on social media, or should it just be left open to the Wild West? You know what I mean? Like,
correct.
So
I do like something that Facebook kind of does, and I think most social media here does now, is that if you post some bullshit, there will be a little asterisk at the bottom of it, and they'll put on there, and we're like, just let you know, like, some of the stuff you said right there was total horse shit. Like, there's no backing it. But then, of course, you'll have the right, and again, I see this all the time, of just like being like, no, that's the fake media.
I mean, at this point in America, the very definition of the truth is totally skewered, and there's literally 2 truths being believed,
well, I mean,
in the country.
A lot of it has to do with, too, is I don't think we've ever quite had such a tweeting president before, you know what I mean? Or like had the technology, like every day the president can wake up and just be like, crazy, what's on my mind? But,
no, I mean, it's definitely true, although I don't know if you can necessarily blame Trump for that, or if anything, he'd probably just be a little ahead of the curve on that, because I don't think that, like, the world in general is trending in the direction of a place where politicians were going to be tweeting a lot more and all this kind of stuff.
For sure.
And just like, I just think that, it's definitely fair market kind of American values, I'd say, to let there be certain online medias that, certain social media that's totally unregulated. However, if you're one of these huge, if you're a Walmart, you got to prove that your business standards are more up to snuff than other places. You know what I mean? So for a Twitter, a Facebook, for these handful of social media that are really in control of everybody's brain, there needs to be a little bit more of a burden of factuality and a burden of serious. You can't just be on on certain sites. There should be regulation, just like certain stores or certain businesses have different, regulation standards than others. You know what I mean? And it's like there should be social media, black web social media, where you can go out there and talk as much shit, and it would be up to the user in the country to decide, okay, this one I believe to be a little bit more factual and honest than this one. You know what I mean? And both are out there, however, but I'm not in general against government regulation on these social media sites. I think you just can't let them be, they've grown to be too important to just let them be the total Wild West. And you need to be, and of course there already is FBI seeking child predators and terrorists. Like, it's not like there's not online regulation, but I think that they should be able to control these specific companies. To, like, Facebook, you can't let somebody have 80 accounts and they're the same name posting conflicting shit. You know what I mean? So, like, if you're willing to agree on regulation of that, then you're willing to agree on regulation of these sites, you know what I mean, which there already is. But, you can't just stop them. I'm not willing to go China direct and it be like the government controls the sites. However, the government needs to control the sites policing themselves a lot better, and then a lot less of this would happen, I think. You know what I mean?
I think there's a difference with what you're saying with, like, what this movie showed of, like, you're right. I think the one weirdo working for Evil BuzzFeed or Feed Buzz or whatever the fuck they call it in the movie, there shouldn't be. It should be easy to be like, hey, you're the same person, dickhead. Like, you can have one account.
But even, like, companies like that should be weeded out through Facebook. You know what I mean? Like,
for sure. But I think your average, like, American person should be able to post whatever fucking crazy thought is in their head. You know what I mean? Short of it being like, I'm going to go kill somebody, then yeah, you get reported. But, like,
I think on some they should be able to, and on some on some they shouldn't. You know what I mean? Like, some or every thought that's in there.
But no one's ever going to use the shouldn'ts. You know what I mean? Why would you fucking...
Well, that would be, like, up to the American people. But honestly, dude, and I've said this before about Facebook and social media, and especially now over the last couple months, as the geeks might know, I've literally, for the first time in my life, over the last 6 months, entered social media. But I definitely think there should be a social media thing that you have to qualify to be on with having some level of fame or just, significance, and you're like, to separate the average Joes from this. Like, I would appreciate a social media where it's just established comedians and established artists, promoting their stuff, and just real politicians, and not being what's up.
You can do that on your own anyway. You can choose who you're following and seeing. Just go on Twitter and only follow the certain people. Anyone else is allowed to do it. I think that if you are going to post bullshit, that there should be a little fact checker at the bottom, being like, okay, what you said there is not true. You're allowed to share it, but, like, we're going to highlight it and be like, just so you know, what you're saying is fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
I get it's hard to regulate that constantly, but there's a certain algorithm where you're going to see the certain same things pop up all the time.
No, for sure.
And just be like, all right, look, dude. Like, what?
Yeah, but I mean, that's asking a lot to, like, now we have to fact check every post as the company, and I get what you're saying, that you can just follow whoever you want or whatever. But all I'm just saying is that the whole point of the reason why those sites are popular is because the average Joe gets to be on Twitter, and I'm on the same platform as Trump. That should still exist. However, I would like if there was another one that was just for, just politicians are able to post on this social media site, and then that social media site has to be a lot more regulated. And then, like, if a politician is posting on that, there is actually a burden of proof to that social media site, because they're specializing in, like, politicians posting on this site, and your average idiot can't get on. This isn't a soapbox for every American public person and every person in the world. world. This is a soapbox specifically for these people. You know what I mean? And like that's because that's my biggest problem with social media in general. Is even my Twitter feed. I try to only follow certain people, but I'm seeing all of their retweets and other stuff, and then it's just like you just get distracted. The fun of it becomes I'm a nobody. I'm posting on it. Like I would like if there was a social media where I could go and just watch. You know what I mean? And it was just certain people without like the average Joes flooding with the opinion.
That's just
and I wish that like I would think that there should be both. And I think that
but isn't that just called fucking the news? Isn't that just called CNN and Fox News?
I mean,
you know what I mean? What's the difference?
Not really. It's like that gets funneled through the news. It's not just those people's words.
Yeah, but exactly for sure it is, dude. Like.
No, it's not. It's definitely for sure not. MSNBC and Fox is definitely filtering those words through political opinion.
The thing's going to happen on your politician's own Twitter.
But the politician's own Twitter, and again, dude, it's just a fair market thing, man. You can't tell me that my company shouldn't exist if I feel that it should. It's just a fair market thing. It's just like, I get what you're saying. If they're on the same site as Twitter, only follow those guys. But then the spirit of it gets taken away by online bots that post 8,000 things. If there was a social media site where only established people were able to be on, then nobody would use it and it wouldn't be popular. But that's fine. But I think that it's just like there should be both.
Where government officials can talk and you, the person, can't say fuck off. Like, this is a site where only us, the leaders, are telling you what's up. You guys don't get to say anything.
Then you wouldn't then you wouldn't have to follow it. Then you know what I mean. And you wouldn't have to follow if it was just social media for NBA players.
Social media anyway.
Huh?
That's the same thing as basic social media anyway. You don't have to follow.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get what you're saying. I'm just saying it's a very dangerous to me being like, all right, here's the leaders. You're not allowed to respond to.
Well, I don't think there's anything dangerous about it. If on that site, then there has to be then that site has to be or gets to be regulated in terms of factual evidence that stops people from spewing out fallacies online. And it's just like you don't want to stop a person's right to give their opinion. However, if you're a certain public official, then you shouldn't just be on the same necessarily social media as every public asshole. You know what I mean? It's just like there should be
the same. Then that's just them also posting their I'm sure whatever Steve Bannon is going to be posting the same situation. I'm sure that fucking Alexandria Cortez, they could both be posting on the same exact thing, or you get two totally different fucking versions of the same story. It's no different, it's fucking just them.
I don't know, I just think that they would maybe handle it differently if it wasn't through the filter of every asshole. Like, the charm of Twitter is that you're competing with every person in the world, you know what I mean? And I don't like that about my social media, is that I don't just see what Kevin Hart's doing, I see what my friend's grandma's doing. And I just want to see what Kevin Hart's doing, you know what I mean?
One of my favorite memes is I do get the idea, especially the COVID anti-masker posts, I do get the idea of dude, I'm listening to fucking medical advice from the kid that could barely pass fucking 9th grade science.
Yeah.
And
they figured out ways to do bots and auto post stuff that's not really there, and advertisement bans and stuff. If it was a controlled media where it's just like NBA social media posts, then the NBA would be able to fucking, you know what I mean, have a little bit more control over not having bots, and potentially false accounts and people in there mixing in and figuring out how to crack the algorithm and put up hundreds of infactual posts,
And the fake accounts, at least, my worries. It's the actual fucking dummies that are using their real names who believe this crazy shit as fact that are able to post it. That kind of goes back to
I'm down with, ultimately speaking, I'm down for there to be Wild West on the internet. But at this point, the internet is so important, I feel that it would also be safe to create a place that's not Wild West on the internet, as long as there's both. You know what I mean? As long as there's both. But it's just there should be some regulated. The internet has just grown to be too important, and there's too much crazy shit going on for it to be totally. And I just think it's stupid. That
literally the series finale of Silicon Valley. It was the whole idea was build a new internet where you're not allowed advertising or fucking businesses. That it's a genuinely clean fucking actual information highway and not this misinformation thing. Kind of like the exact idea of what you're kind of looking for, it sounds like.
Yeah. And all I'm looking for is just like an alternate one that, and it would make total sense to me that it's just like, all right, this is like a politician-only social media thing. There would be a lot less bots and auto crazy thing, and maybe you wouldn't have to follow it. It's the same thing as Twitter.
Like how,
well, it's not, because there's not going to be all of the bullshit out there. You know what I mean? It's like, don't follow it then. You know?
It's like the original Facebook. You know, you needed an edu email, like a .edu to be able
Yes,
to
exactly. You know
so for yours, you needed like a .gov. Dude, I'm sure there's something out there like there's gotta be. You would think there is.
Well, I mean, you were just 2 seconds ago saying that it's fucking stupid and there shouldn't be.
Well,
so now you're saying that there is. But
I'm
in this
saying
terms of this movie, though, huh?
I'm kidding.
I think in terms of this movie, though, it did like transcend into real life, like application of the internet gone wrong as well. Like, you know, just using the video game world as a place to like communicate with terrorism or other kind of shit, or even like there being big corporations based on misinformation. Like there should definitely be regulation on that, and I'm sure Facebook should, you know, just stuff like that, like that dark side of the internet, you know, needs to be regulated. Huh?
Or like they try to. I think in some aspect there is like that's obviously illegal. And if
For sure.
Catch you doing that, like you're fucked. Like it's just hard to regulate.
Yeah. So it's not like there's not, you know, like, you know, illegal internet activities being regulated and all that kind of stuff. But so there already is regulation on the internet. You know what I mean? But there should definitely be like you said, the platform for every American. Like there should be the Twitter for every American to give their opinion. I just think it's stupid that it's so intertwined with the real people giving real opinions and any given idiot who don't even know if they are real to be given theirs. You know what I mean? Like I think there should be a little separation of those two. But
true. I guess that's our
kitschy answers.
Reviews. I guess I'll disagree with that. To some extent, I agree with some of the stuff you're saying. But anyway, with that, the realist answer of our realist question. This is only one thing, and you thought we were arguing now. Wait till you hear our review section of this movie.
Ooh, baby, it's time to get geeked up.